Hello again. Right, the tube should be here tomorrow, or the CDS tube should be here tomorrow to rebuild the cage frame that goes around the gearbox to mount the rockers. As you can see, the only things I've managed to keep from the original rocker design was obviously the triangle shape here, which fits between the two rocker platforms here to here, and then back to a cupped unit bolt there, and obviously the two bars that keep the joint through here in double shear. Because obviously most of the force of the springs with the shock absorber being this way is going to want to push that way, which is going to want to kind of bend that. So we just put the single bolt and double shear, and then I'll lock wire. I'll probably lock wire most of the stuff at the back, to be honest, because it's quite one bolt comes undone, it kind of wouldn't be a happy scene. So so pretty much I've had to chop all the bars that would normally come down to all of these points. Now these are the same suspension joints as before, but we've put a I CNC'd out a big 6mm thick washer here and shortened these bars. So now basically I can put a UHMD, which is basically a really hard nylon washer behind here to stop the movement of this wishbone going forward and back too much. I don't mind a bit of compliance as it twists, so it's as a push in and out. That's actually what I want. I want to try and take some of the vibration out, but I don't want too much movement this way. Now I suspect that it's, well, actually you can see it kind of here. If we just do that, if it focuses in, which it probably won't. There you go. I can actually kind of just about put a bit of force on there, so I don't want too much of that, so I'm going to basically allow myself 20 thou, half a mil, and then put a disc washer basically inside of there that will restrict the movement front to back. And obviously put one here and one there, and then, you know, in parallel, push or pull, braking or acceleration, you know, you get the idea. Obviously there's no top wishbone at the moment. This spacer has decreased slightly. Reasoning for the spacer climb, okay, there I hear you shout. Why didn't I put it like the bottom with the joints right up against the flange? Well, originally when we did the top wishbone, we kind of realised that the angle of this arm here, if I grab a top wishbone, no, that's not a top, where are we? Quickly grab. If we go a top wishbone here, as you can see by looking at this, we have to put the tie in for the towing eye for the rear into this joint here. Now, because of the width or the length of the top of the upright, where this pickup point here is, it would have been angling way too far forward to get to here. So basically we've been bringing this angle back to try and get that there in the right place, so that the towing arm is actually reasonably straight. I don't mind a, you know, a 5 degree or whatever else out. That's not something that can make a huge amount of difference, but I don't particularly want like a 15-degree angle on it. I'd sooner bring it back as straight as possible. So this is why we have an aluminium spacer here. It's recessed into here, like the same holes in there and everywhere else. So technically that recess will go into there, and, you know, it'll create some of the shear load that might have been in two places. It'll push it back to here. So that's why I have a spacer at the top. Plus it brings that wishbone in a little bit like that way, because obviously it's quite a bit short. If you look at the top goes to the bottom, you know, we're spreading out quite a distance. So that's the reasoning for the spacer. Anyway, so now I have to tie the rocker pad back in. Rocker pad has to tie back into here, or to this joint here, to that joint there, to these threaded. These are threaded for the 1/2-inch bolts. So basically, you know, this is a threaded joint that I've had CNC turned, just because it makes it easier. I've done 50 of them. So we'll put a 3/4 CDS tube back to here, back to there, onto here, back up to here. Now, originally I had one coming back from here all the way directly down to here. Now unfortunately the starter motor, which I kind of suspected would be this kind of gets in the way of that, and I don't want that bar getting in the way of the starter motor at all. So what we're going to do, similar to we do on the top with the engine bolt here, those will come back to the beams here as well, which will tie in the beam from here to there, like so. It's pathetic, but there you go, excuse me. We'll tie into that like that, but then we'll put a short brace between there and there, which aids a bit for the shear on that, but to be honest it's probably in the wrong direction. But what it does do is it ties the rocker back into here and ties that into there, so it gives us some more support. For a small piece of tube there, I don't mind. What it does do then is give us plenty of room for the starter motor here. The orientation of the starter motor will have to turn slightly to make sure that the actual starter solenoid is not in the way of this bar, but I want to use a bog standard Porsche unit with a large motor. The gear reduction ones, I just never seem to have much faith in ones. They seem to be cheap and they seem to have issues, so I want to use an original ring gear in its original place, obviously, which will be further forward on the box, and I want to use an original starter motor, which has actually the anti-cantilever support. You can see at the back there the hole, so the actual the pinion shaft of the starter motor is actually supported at the back of the gearbox, so as far as I'm concerned it works better. And on Andy's 4-speed gearbox we did, the starter motor sounded lovely, and it was the original Porsche, and it turned over an 11:1 383 no problem at all, so and it sounded nice and smooth, unlike some I've heard. So we've got a lot of tie-ins to do, but you get the basic frame. Spent all of today mapping out this hole, basically doing a virtual hole to get the gearbox to be a nice 8mm clearance all the way around. This notch here won't be in the original, just the fact the car's on the bed, I can't lower the plate below this piece here, so I just notched the wood for the moment, saved me having to take the gearbox and engine lift it up. It's the rear plate. There we go. More billet, lovely. Obviously the bars at the moment, the diagonal bars that go to the roof, these will be tied back into these two top positions here, and what I'll probably do is, I've seen on the mate's car he put a tie instead of just coming down to here and then one up to the center of the cross. What I'll probably do is come up from here to the bar, but also go diagonally to the other bar and then do the same on that side, so it'll come up from that side here diagonally up to here. So I'll have a kind of vertical cross there, just give me a little bit more torsion. It'll put across that way, so it'll make it a bit more, I don't know, I just like the idea of it. It looked cool. Original gearbox mount is obviously for a Porsche engine, which is I can't even think which way around it is. I think it's like that. And basically these rubbers are designed, if you look at the centre of the rubber would normally design that direction, so that on the weight of it would push down on those two things. Well, if you turn it the way up, it's kind of pulling on them instead of pushing down. So I could use the rubbers out of there, bolt them up to here, and machine a new aluminium piece and just use these two rubbers, but to be honest I don't need that amount of flex. So what I'm probably going to use is yet again 2 more of these rubberized suspension bushes. That's the outer cover, which technically becomes the part of the wishbone, which obviously fits on top of those, slides on those, no problem. What I could do is put 2 more bushes here. My issue then is there's probably a bit too much distance between the bush and the plate, so an angle coming down here isn't really taking the vertical load as nicely as it should do. And yes, okay, I could come down to there as well and make it a triangle, so come from there to there, from there to there, but I don't know, I'd sooner move the bushes further so that the weight from the gearbox is bolted here, and move it forward. So I've got some spare bolt holes here and a couple on the side, plus I can use some of these if I have to. That's what I'll probably do, because they're on the same plane, those 3 4 holes are probably on the same plane. What I'll do is I'll lift the plate off of here, bolt it to those 4 holes there. I'll machine it a la Valley, have it sitting there, and then basically have my 2 bushes sitting through the plate, and I can tie it straight into here. It'll be a lot closer then, you know. Bush sitting here, it'll be a lot closer just to tie a small frame to come off from there to come down to it. And if I wanted to bring the bush even closer, I suppose I could tie in these plates here to that. So that's the thinking on the gearbox mount. But I also don't want to go too high in here. I want to keep this as low as possible, because then I can put the larger of whatever the exhaust box is going to be, this void here, because obviously the back of the car is kind of like here somewhere. So I've got a large area here above the gearbox, which I can easily put a cross box in. And then I can put, coming out of the cross box, I can come down with 2 smaller kind of straight through mufflers, and then come out into the diffuser or into the back of the car, depending on where I want to look at it. So there we go. Progress on the, obviously some on the engine, and larger than I'd expected gap underneath it, but still the engine itself. If you look at this, I've only got 140mm to the base of the chassis here to the floor. So crank center line is quite a bit lower than it would be in a normal setup, due to the fact now the gearbox is the lowest part of the car. I've had to chop off the top of the box there. It's normally a power assisted clutch slave cylinder. It's a hydro something, whatever they call it, which isn't needed anymore, because I'm going slave cylinder on the input shaft, and obviously a multi-plate clutch, so I don't need much clamping pressure. So I've ground most of that off. I just got a bit of fettling to make it nice and smooth. But at the moment, you can see that is the lowest point, which unfortunately means I've got over a 30mm gap now at the base of the engine, which is kind of a shame. It'd be nice to drop it lower, but that bell housing isn't very strong when it's taking forces in the direction of which it's not designed to take. So I shall be making a skid plate underneath the gearbox, bring it up at the angle, because the new rear plate will be, I've machined this one down to the floor, just make it easy for the jig. So I know this is supposed to sit on the jig, but technically the newer one actually won't be any lower than about that. There'll be about a 30mm rise here. So I'll make a skid plate which will act partly as a central part of the diffuser, but will be a separate entity, but will become quite thick, quite rigid. I might even put a couple of steel bars down it just to make sure that it's got a bit of bend in it if for whatever reason the back of the car runs over something the front misses, which would be kind of unusual. I suppose you might be able to compress suspension and at some point hit something, but you know, we've got 40mm more clearance at the back than you have at the front. So there you go, I'm rabbiting. That's progress on stuff at the moment.